The diner sat at the edge of the highway like it had for decades, a low brick building with fogged windows and a flickering neon sign that buzzed even in daylight. Inside, the smell of grease, coffee, and old wood mixed into something familiar and comforting. It was the kind of place where truckers stopped at dawn, where locals gathered after church, and where nobody expected anything to happen beyond small talk and refilled mugs. Emily sat in the corner booth near the window, her back straight the way her therapist had taught her, her hands folded carefully in her lap. Her wheelchair was pulled close to the table, locked in place. She always chose this booth because it made her feel less exposed. From here, she could watch the cars pass and pretend she was just another customer, not someone people stared at when they thought she wasn't looking. She was 21, with soft brown hair pulled into a loose braid and a slight tremor in her left hand that worsened when she was nervous. A neurological condition had taken her ability to walk when she was 12, and years of doctors, hospitals, and whispered pity had shaped her into someone quiet but observant. She noticed everything. The way the waitress smiled a little longer at kind customers, the way some people spoke louder to her as if disability meant deafness, the way others avoided eye contact altogether. Today was supposed to be simple. Her mother was at work, her physical therapy session had ended early, and Emily had decided, against her own fears, to eat lunch alone. It was a small act of independence, one she was proud of. She had ordered grilled cheese and tomato soup, her comfort meal, and was slowly sipping water while waiting for her food. At the counter, 3 young men laughed loudly, their voices cutting through the diner like broken glass. They looked like they'd stepped out of a college bar, baseball caps worn backward, expensive sneakers, shirts with logos that screamed money and carelessness. They'd been drinking something stronger than coffee before they arrived, that much was obvious from their slurred laughter and exaggerated movements. At first, Emily ignored them. She'd learned long ago that attention, good or bad, often brought trouble. But one of them noticed her anyway. "Hey," he said loudly, nudging his friend and nodding toward her booth. "Check it out." Emily felt her shoulders tighten. She stared down at the condensation ring on the table, willing herself to disappear. "What, you never seen a wheelchair before?" another one said, laughing. "Guess not around here much." The third one stood up, stretching like he owned the place. "Bet she gets special treatment everywhere she goes." The waitress glanced over, her smile fading, but she didn't say anything. A man in a business suit at another table frowned, then looked back down at his phone. The cook rattled plates in the kitchen, pretending not to hear. Emily's heart pounded. She told herself to stay calm, to breathe the way she'd been taught. Most of the time, words were all people used. Words hurt, but she could survive them. "Hey, sweetheart," the first guy called out, stepping closer. "You need help cutting your food too." She didn't respond. She kept her eyes down, hoping he'd get bored. Instead, he smirked. Rude. He reached out suddenly, fast and careless, and slapped her across the face. The sound was sharp and loud, echoing off the walls. Emily gasped, the shock freezing her more than the pain. Her cheek burned, her vision blurring as tears rushed to her eyes. For a split second, the entire diner went silent. Then laughter. "Oh man," one of the others said. "Did you see that?" Emily's hands shook uncontrollably. She tasted blood where her teeth had cut her lip. The humiliation was worse than the pain, worse than the years of stares and whispers combined. She felt exposed, small, and utterly alone. "Don't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The man raised his hands mockingly. "Relax. Just joking." No one moved. No one stood up. The waitress hovered uncertainly, fear written all over her face. Someone coughed. Someone else paid their bill and hurried out. Emily pressed her fingers against her cheek, fighting the sob rising in her chest. She wanted to scream, to call her mother, to roll herself out the door and never come back. But her body felt heavy, unresponsive, as if the weight of everyone's silence had pinned her in place. The men laughed a little longer, then lost interest. They tossed some cash on the counter, not nearly enough to cover their food, and swaggered out, still joking with each other. Only after the door swung shut did the noise return. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. The waitress approached Emily slowly, her eyes glossy. I'm so sorry," she said. "Are you okay?" Emily nodded even though she wasn't. She wiped her tears quickly, embarrassed by them. Could you pack my food to go? Of course, the waitress said, her voice shaking. I'll bring it right out. Emily waited alone again, staring at her reflection in the window. A faint red mark bloomed on her cheek, a visible reminder of what had just happened. She felt stupid for coming here alone, stupid for thinking the world had changed enough to be safe. When the waitress returned with a bag, she placed it gently on the table. If you want to call someone, I'll be okay, Emily said, forcing a small smile. She paid, tipped more than she should have, and wheeled herself out into the afternoon sun. The parking lot felt too open, too bright. She sat in her car for a long moment before starting the engine, letting the tears finally fall. She didn't know that she hadn't been as invisible as she thought. Across the diner, in the far booth near the back, a man with a graying beard and arms like tree trunks had watched everything. He wore a plain black leather vest over a long-sleeved shirt, no patches visible, no attempt to draw attention. He'd come in for coffee and pie, nothing more. But when the slap landed, his jaw tightened, and something dark passed through his eyes. He didn't move, not then. Experience had taught him patience. He paid his bill, nodded to the waitress, and stepped outside. The rumble of motorcycles drifted from the far end of the lot where a half-dozen bikes were parked in a loose row, chrome catching the sunlight. Men leaned against them, talking quietly, their laughter low and controlled. He walked over and spoke softly, his voice calm but heavy. They heard a girl, he said. Disabled. Inside. The laughter stopped. One by one, heads turned toward the diner. Who? Another biker asked. 3 kids. Think they're untouchable. A tall man with a braided beard cracked his knuckles slowly. When? Just now, the older man replied. They left. But they'll be back. People like that always are. The men exchanged looks. No shouting. No dramatic gestures. Just understanding. We give it an hour, someone said. Let them feel safe. The older man nodded. An hour. Inside the diner, life went on, unaware of the quiet decision that had just been made. Emily drove home with the radio off, the silence heavy. She replayed the moment over and over in her mind. The slap, the laughter, the way no one had stepped in. She wondered if this was all life would ever be. Moments of courage followed by reminders of how cruel people could be. At home, she washed her face, changed clothes, and tried to distract herself with a book, but the words blurred together. Every time she closed her eyes, she felt it again. An hour passed. Back at the diner, the bell above the door jingled. Then jingled again, and again. The sound of heavy boots filled the room, followed by the unmistakable creak of leather and the low rumble of engines idling outside. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths. A line of bikers walked in, calm and deliberate, filling the space without raising their voices. They took off helmets, revealing weathered faces and eyes that missed nothing. Leather vests bore patches now, symbols of brotherhood, loyalty, and something far older than the diner itself. The older man led them, scanning the room slowly. The waitress swallowed hard. "See, can I help you?" He offered a polite nod. Coffee. And a table. They spread out, taking booths and chairs, their presence heavy but controlled. No threats. No aggression. Just waiting. Outside, 3 young men laughed as they pulled back into the parking lot, unaware that the balance of the room had shifted. And inside, the air itself seemed to hold its breath.